All right, I am literally just being handed this piece of paper, so bear with me, folks. This is from Jim Rutenberg in the New York Times. A former Playboy model who claimed she had an affair with Donald Trump sued on Tuesday to be released from a 2016 legal agreement requiring her silence, becoming the second woman, obviously after Stormy Daniels, to challenge Trump allies' efforts during the presidential campaign. This is Karen McDougal suing the company that owns the National Enquirer, which paid her $150,000 and whose chief executive is a friend of Mr. Trump's. And, of course, the other person is Stormy Daniels. Let me get your reaction to this.
This is significant breaking news. This is another woman whose account, I believe, was originally reported by Ronan Farrow in The New Yorker. But this goes to what Mr. Avenatti and other people have saying. This breaking news is the suggestion here that the reason that the Trump White House and the Trump organization, which is involved in all of this, has gone to such great lengths to silence Ms. Daniels, is that maybe there are other people. Well, now we're seeing one with another alleged NDA, and obviously this news is just coming in to our newsroom, courtesy of the New York Times, as you say, Chris. But what this suggests is it explains why, as I was mentioning moments ago, we saw such an unusual Friday night filing from the White House, basically in the visage of Donald Trump personally entering the litigation, which is not something you do lightly, but does suggest they want to stop this. And so the question that emerges is how many other people, how many other women may be out there with NDAs trying to decide, is it in their interest to stay quiet, or if these things are going to break and they have something they want to say, can they do that without being exposed to millions of dollars in fees or bankruptcy? So
what, again, the New York Times is reporting, Katie, is that Ms. McDougal, who filed this in Los Angeles Superior Court, claims that the president's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, was secretly involved in her talks with the company that owns the National Enquirer, the American Media Inc., AMI, and that the company and her lawyer at the time misled her about the deal. So her new lawyer, a guy named Peter Striss, sent an email to the New York Times accusing AMI of, quote, a multifaceted effort to silence Karen McDougal. Your reaction to that?
So what's fascinating about those allegations, and Ari's right, these are always just allegations until they're proven in court, is what you said, it's Michael Cohen. Why is Michael Cohen's imprimatur, why is his paw prints on everything? And so what ends up happening is, if you want to have a binding contract, Chris, you have to look at the intent of the parties. And if you look at the intent of the parties, you can look at things like emails, correspondence, letters, in order to prove the intent of the parties to enter into a binding contract. That contract would be that non-disclosure agreement that Karen McDougal is challenging right now. And the fact that she's bringing a lawsuit means she wants the opportunity to be able to have that discovery process occur so that things like interrogatories, things like depositions, things that could help provide the information that she can use to prove exactly what she's alleging in her complaint can be provided. But I'll bet you that there's an ND. I bet you there's an arbitration provision there. Well, I'll bet you we're going to hear that argument.
And the other piece here, and I'm doing a little live legal analysis, so it's just what I've been handed, but in many ways, the legal odds for this brand new lawsuit breaking right now for Mr. McDougal are probably better than Ms. Daniels, and I'll explain why. Ms. Daniels did originally contract for silence, and that is something. You can contract to talk, you can contract not to talk. The allegation here is fundamentally different. We have to see how it plays out, but it's something that had been previously reported, that she didn't contract for silence, that she contracted to tell her story through a publication. The Enquirer, which is famously controlled by a close friend of Donald Trump's, and that's public, they don't deny that. And so here the allegation could be very different. It essentially is that she thought she was making a contract to release this story about Mr. Trump, quote, I'm reading here, on her own terms, her suit says, and then they flipped it on her and silenced her by saying, we're not going to print it, but you keep the money and you don't get to tell your story here or anywhere else. That, I can tell you legally, is a stronger claim if you can argue that essentially...
But why is that not legal? They paid her for her story. They decided not to use it. Is that any different, for example, and I certainly know people who this has happened to, somebody options your book, they pay you for it because they think they're going to make a movie about it, and they never do.
It's a great question, and now we're going to move from Playboy models and adult film actresses to a little copyright law, if everyone wants to just come along for the ride. The main difference would be, are you holding the copyright of the underlying material, okay, the idea for the movie or the words you wrote for a given article, you take the kill fee, they own that copyright, or have you now, perhaps without your knowledge, that's what this seems to allege, been told you can't speak about something that happened in your life ever again? In other words, the Inquirer might have a good legal grounds to say we own those particular words, but not all words you might ever state about this thing. So you could imagine someone could sell an idea for a movie because they lived through a plane crash, and the plot of that movie they no longer own, but they can talk. And so this is a very interesting suit.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.